was over 3 days. And the first night was Dylan and the Stones. And by the way, if I was allowed to punch Bob Dylan in the face, I would have.
Live from the Willie Nelson and Friends Museum Showcase in Nashville, Tennessee. It's Music is Funny. Musicians talking to comedians about music and comedy. With your hosts, Raylan Nelson and Jonathan Bright.
Still smoking, I'm so high, I keep toking, I'm drunk, but I'm still drinking too.
Hi, Raylan Nelson
I'm Jonathan Bright.
from the Raylan Nelson Band.
And welcome back to another episode of Music is Funny.
Hey, before we get started, I need to let you know I will be on the next episode of Shitty Song of the Week podcast this Friday.
Shitty Song of the Week.
Yeah, we did shitty 90s country songs,
Excellent.
and I think I'm going to win. Twitter actually votes, but I'm pretty sure I won.
I'll have to tune in.
I did it with Pepper Goins from the Rushmore podcast.
Funny guy. Love Pepper.
Yeah, funny podcast too. Check it out. And he actually wrote the Ari theme song that we covered back in the summer.
Oh, yeah.
Ari Shapiro owns this song.
That's the one.
Anyway, check that out. Shitty Song of the Week podcast and Rushmore podcast. And this week, brand new episode of Music is Funny. We have another 30-year comedian.
Another great one. Great guy. Then he started comedy very, very young.
Yeah, he was a child.
15 or something like that.
Yeah, he's a stand-up writer, producer on many, many shows.
Joey Diaz babysat his children.
Yeah, that's where Uncle Joey comes from. I didn't even know that.
It's a trip, but yeah.
Some funny Uncle Joey stories with the kids.
There is. You gotta stick around to hear that. But yeah, he's got a lot of cool new ideas about how to get comedy out and different platforms and things like that. So I thought it was a fantastic conversation.
Yeah, I did too. And I feel like we're friends now.
Yeah.
He's here in Nashville. You know him from Chelsea lately. Josh Wolf.
He refuses to play the songs the way he recorded them. So if he's going to play Tangled Up in Blue, you don't recognize the arrangement.
That's nothing new, man. He's been doing that for a while.
And it's a dick move. You're basically telling the people who bought your music, I don't give a fuck what you think or what you like or what you want to hear. This is what I'm playing.
Yeah. I feel like he's doing pro wrestling almost at this point. Like fucking around with his icon status and just and just stirring it up.
It's such a fuck you to the people who go. And that's what look, maybe it should be, I haven't performed for as long as him. I haven't been in the spotlight since 1960. You know, when Ringo Starr was like, I'm not taking pictures anymore, guys, and I'm not signing autographs. I was like, yeah, you deserve that. You could have called that 20 years ago if you wanted to. And so I get it when you get to a point. But if you're charging people money, then let them know. I saw the Melvins in the early 90s at a little place in Seattle. I had just moved there. I didn't know.
They were huge in Seattle.
I didn't know anybody, and I didn't know the Melvins. But I'm all about. I love hearing bands for the first time live.
It's the best.
I really do. I like and I'd never heard them before. So I went to a Melvins show by myself in this tiny little club, like right off under the freeway in Seattle, and I was just like, "What the fuck am I watching?" I also saw Neil Young and Pearl Jam at a 400-seat club, unannounced show in Seattle, and Neil Young just sang Pearl Jam songs.
Yeah, see, you're like me. All of my favorite shows, pretty much that I've seen, have been in clubs. You know, Husker Du in a tiny room here in town. The Replacements, the Chili Peppers at a 200-seater. Because during the late '80s and early '90s, all of that college radio, all those bands came through. Nashville was a hot spot. We had a big college radio thing here. So REM, all those guys came through when they were, literally you could see them at this punk club called Cantrell's that probably held 100 people. Smelled like piss.
Yeah, that's what we like.
PA, but man, great shows.
You know, when I was very young, I was a huge Police fan. And so one of the very first albums I remember going cover to cover on. And what I mean by that is sitting down, putting on the record, putting the needle down, and looking at the cover and the sleeve while I listened to the music.
Yeah.
Just taking in, like in the Synchronicity sleeve, I think if I remember, had a bunch of pictures on it and stuff.
Yep.
And I was just like, because it brought me into the artist.
Yeah,
and what are you trying to tell me? And I was talking to my friend Philip Sweet about this the other day. Philip plays in Little Big Town. And I told him, I said, you guys seem like one of the few remaining bands that really take care of what order you put your songs in on your album. Like you want them to listen to it in order. And he said, yeah, we're kind of old school that way, but we put them in this order for a reason. Mm-hmm. And I'm not sure if artists do that anymore.
It's a lost art because,
I think we do it like a set, like we would do if we were playing a show.
Well, we still kind of do that because we're sort of old school thinking, but
I think live you have to, because you need to keep the energy up.
Unless there's certain bands though that can come out with no set list and they're just that tight and they call them off and read the crowd. It's really two different ways people do it. I've seen, like Driving and Crying works without a set. Dan Baird from the Satellites, he walks out, plays for 2 hours. The band doesn't know what's coming. He just calls them out.
Really.
But also, like on an album, I think we do that too, where we place the songs on the album
as if you were going to sit down and listen to top to bottom,
or like a show, right? Yeah.
But it tells a story. Sometimes the artist would put them in that order to take you on that journey or tell you that story.
Yeah.
And now it honestly feels like sometimes I look at it and I'm like, those first 3 songs are what they think are their best 3 songs.
Mm-hmm.
Because they're not sure how many songs people are actually going to get through.
If people even make albums anymore.
So I'm going to top load them. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't even know why you need to.
We've stopped pretty much. We were
Thank
just
you, Josh Wolf.
Yeah, we've been saying that for years.
I appreciate that.
But it makes more sense to, like, for us, you put out 12 songs and then you got about a month of talking about that package of 12 songs and everybody's like, whatever, it's your old fucking record, we're done with it. But if you just space nobody's buying at store CDs anymore. Right. So if you space them out every couple of 3 months, they need something all the time. Then you can get
package them together.
A year and a half out of 12 songs. Each couple of months is like, hey, here's a new song, instead of like, hey, here's another song off the old record.
It's interesting. I'm streaming a comedy special March 4th.
I know.
We're going to get into that.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I think it might be my last hour, because not that I'm going to stop making, like I write a lot.
Right.
Like I have another hour. I could do 2 hours. Well, I tour a lot and I write a lot. If you come to my shows, one of the things, people will come to a late show and an early show because they know it's not going to be the same.
Right.
And that's been to my detriment as a performer. Except, for my career, it's been a detriment. When you come to my live shows, it's better for the people who come to my live shows because I like it to be fresh and new.
Right.
But, the way you're supposed to do it is nail this hour, put it out, do another hour.
Start over.
But I think I'm going to do what you guys are talking about, which is 20 minutes every 3 months. I'm going to release 20 minutes every 3 months. So you get new comedy from me all the time.
It's genius.
Yeah, and it's one of the things impressive about you is, we're the same age. You've been around for a long time, but it seems like from the start, and we'll get into it, you've been able to pivot and not get stuck in, well, this is what I do and what I want to do and how I do it. It's like, where are the opportunities and how do I sort of navigate and stay true to myself, but find the path where I can still do comedy. Well, let's get into it. Like, you started young.
Yeah.
How old were you when you started?
My parents drove me to my first show. So I didn't have my license.
Well, when did you know you wanted to do it?
I remember watching TV and seeing stand-up, and I was the youngest of 4 boys. It was called Evening at the Improv.
So random.
Yeah. And I had 3 older brothers, and, as the youngest, you better make people laugh or you're going to get punched in the face. I found early, I'm like, the way I can get him to stop farting in my mouth is if I get some jokes in here. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I remember the first time I hopped on stage. I can tell you the first joke I told.
Yes.
I was super nervous. Wow. I was just talking about this with my dad. And I said, do you remember the first time I hopped on stage? And he was like, yeah, of course. And I said, I was so nervous. And he said, I remember thinking he's going to do this for the rest of his life. And I said, why? And he said, do you remember the conversation we had before you walked on stage? And I said, no. And he saw me. I was visibly shaking. Mm-hmm. And he was like, you don't have to do this. And I guess I said to him, yeah,
yes,
I do. I think I'm going to love it. And when I got on stage, he said, do you know what happened? I said, what? He goes, your body stopped shaking. He said, as soon as you stepped on stage, it was like whatever nerves you had were just gone. And the first joke I ever told, my mom and dad were sitting in the front, and they had one of those disposable, you know, one of those ones?
Spinning flashbulb on the top.
And my first joke ever was, hey, everybody, my name's Josh. I'm 16 years old. I'm super happy to be here. And I'm a little nervous. My parents are here, and this will be the first fucking time I'll fucking swear in front of my cocksucking mom.
I was about to say, and this is in Boston, right?
Brought the house down. Western Mass, like a smaller town in Western Mass.
But there, you know, that's...
What did your mom do?
This. She just kind of looked at me like, what?
Mouth agape.
And then because I remember asking the guy, what should I talk about? He said, talk about what you know. Your first time on stage is going to be hard enough. So just talk about things you know. And the thing that my brothers and I used to joke about all the time was how much my parents farted. So I did 5 minutes with them sitting right in front of me about how much they farted. And my mom was just like, what am I doing here? You know what
have I raised?
Yeah. But my dad was laughing and it was good. But I realized that night, I'm like, this is something.
It sounds like you started before you had a chance to you know, as young musicians, you're a fan of a band and you automatically sound like them when you start going.
Yeah.
Like, it seems like you were almost too young to sound like whatever comedian you'd have been listening to, like sort of stealing their cadence or anything like that.
You remember, I would have had to have their album.
Right.
Right? At the time, I would have had to have their album. And I didn't. I remember the first lot.
Their comedy albums weren't everywhere back then. You had to go
no.
searching those things out.
And I think the first special I ever saw was with my dad and my brother Dan. And we were driving my brother Dan to Jacksonville, Florida, because he was going to college. And we were driving from Massachusetts down. And we were staying at one of my dad's friends' houses. I didn't grow up with money or anything like that. And so we were staying in the living room. And it must have been HBO because Carlin live at Carnegie Hall was there. And my dad said, do you know who George Carlin is? And I was like, I don't. And so my brother was 18, which means I was 14. And I was just blown away. I was like, what? Because I had never seen that art form before.
Mm-hmm. He wasn't just telling
and not like
one-liners.
Yeah. Not like that. And I was just like, whoa, what is this? And that is what kind of gave me the bug to try it in any of the improv. And so I think the first comic that I bet you, if you're going to ask me who my favorite comic ever is, I think it's probably Sam Kinison.
Yeah?
Yeah.
And I wouldn't, if you're saying, is he the best comic ever? I don't know that you can say that.
It's like picking the best guitar player ever.
You can't do it. It's taste, right? But he is the first guy who made me think, oh, we can say things like that?
Yeah.
Is he talking about God right now? Do you know what I mean? Like, he was a preacher's kid.
Same with Bill Hicks. He was one of my early ones. We saw at Zany's a couple times. It's like, holy shit, look at this guy.
But he spoke about what he knew.
Yep.
And so if it bothered you, it bothered you. But he still, as an artist, has to talk about what he knows.
Mm-hmm. And the thing about Bill is he's from, the South, Texas, but he would shit on the South constantly, his own people. And yet, being from the South, I'm just dying laughing. And, you just kind of had to take it. He's kind of right.
Do you know what's funny is that I toured with Cable Guy for a long time.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And Dan is a very nice man. He was always super generous to me. But I would ask him, I'm like, your audience, you're telling jokes about them. And he was like, yeah, but
he is them.
I am them.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's okay. And he said, and also like, sometimes they don't think I'm making fun of them, that I'm making fun of somebody they know.
Their neighbor.
Yeah,
exactly. That sounds like Jimmy next door.
Yeah. But he was like, but I am them. So we're laughing together. Mm-hmm. I'm not pointing any fingers.
Right.
And it's the same thing. Like I was like, oh, that makes total sense. And so I've definitely learned from a bunch of people, but I don't know if there was that
guy that you just were such a huge fan of. You came out sounding like that, which is well. You started so young that you were up there doing it almost before you got a chance to get.
I think so.
A bunch of stuff in your brain from other comics.
I think so.
And
Your brain wasn't even developed yet.
It still isn't. I think the weed has something to do with it, but
it's also keeping you young, though.
Yeah, that's
young
what we're
brain,
hoping for.
young body. There you go.
Yeah, I might be the mushrooms too.
Oh, there you go.
Every Monday night.
Oh yeah.
So every single time I do shrooms, trees will talk to me.
Well, you should come over to the house on Monday night. We'll do them.
Okay, I'm
Yeah,
there.
yeah,
and
yeah.
do trees talk to you? Have you had that experience yet?
My dog talks to me every now and then.
Like,
But that's not when he's doing shrooms.
Yeah.
He's got a really cool dog.
I will tell you, my dog hates it when I shroom. He goes and sits.
He knows?
He sits in his kennel. I think you're different.
He's probably
Yeah,
just
your
like, oh,
energy-
God.
Energy's a little different.
Here he goes again. I'm going to
Is
get
he
away
gonna-
with it.
Is he going to
Stare in
ask
my
me to make
face.
him a pancake again? I can't talk. But on Monday nights, it's been one
why
of the
Mondays?
Well, it's been one of the most freeing things. My last 5 years or so, one of my goals has been like, man, you need to free yourself from whatever last little bit of I can't do that or I can't say that and I'm not a controversial person anyways, but like you got to let go of what other people think of you entirely. That is the way to really become the best artist you can be. And it's really the hardest thing to let go of.
Yeah.
And also, that's one of the important things about hanging in there if you want to be an artist, to get to an age where it gets easier with age.
Yeah.
Once you've dealt with a bunch of bullshit and you get to a certain age. But it is, the mushrooms break down that last final wall, I guess.
I think so. Yeah. And you know what's crazy is that it's such a crazy balance because you need people. So you don't want to do things that they hate.
Right.
But if you make art for other people, nobody's going to listen to it because it's not going to be good. So there's like that.
Yeah.
You really have to trust in what you're doing. And right. So I do this thing on Monday nights called the High Live, where I smoke weed and I take mushrooms and I turn on my camera and I stream it live because I know I'm going to do and say some stupid shit. But then I wake up the next day and I'm like, I'm still here. The sun's still up. Life is still going and nobody gives a fuck what I said.
Yeah.
So why do you care so much?
Yeah.
And so
That's pretty enlightening.
it's
It
really
is.
chipped away.
That's inspiring.
Yeah, it's in a weird way. And people are like, do you need drugs for it? I'm like, apparently.
There's a reason they're here.
I don't not need drugs for it, But
Are you an alcohol guy?
not at all.
What made you quit?
I make bad life decisions.
Yeah.
I make bad life decisions. Any other, as a weed smoker, like, I've never been like, man, I was so high last night. I can't believe.
Right. Yeah. Mhm.
I can't believe I fell asleep.
Oh, yeah. I can't believe I ate that whole bag, is
Right.
all you're going to say.
Yeah.
But you're never going to be like, I can't believe we climbed on KFC and,
Picked a fight with 3 people.
Yeah,
and,
yeah. You tried to stick your dick in the Colonel's ear. I did. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
you're not high. You're not doing any of that.
Yeah, and then also you can also usually remember. Now you might remember what you zoned out into thinking, and not really everything that's going on around you. But with alcohol, you can just forget
Yeah.
hours of a time.
And we feel fine the next morning.
Yeah,
That's
it's
another
true.
thing. Like, I don't waste the next day. And
Yeah, hangovers got too bad,
Yeah.
In your 20s, you're like, you hit 31, you're like,
Yeah.
God, 2 days later, I'm like, I can't do this kind of stuff
Did
anymore.
I drink with my foot? Why does it still hurt? Do I have a hangover in my foot?
Exactly.
Yeah, I'm with you. So I used to just drink tequila. I love it. If we and I also don't have a great off button.
to stop.
That's
yeah.
important with drinking, I would
Yes.
think. Because I know I got friends that can't drink a drop because they're off.
That's my thing.
They're buying an 8-ball of blow in 3 hours.
Yeah.
12-pack later.
So for me, weed and mushrooms, I love the way they make me feel. And I love at my age where my brain goes when I'm on them and all that stuff. So I don't know. Who knows? 5 years from now, I might be like, you know what? Bring the booze back. You
Yeah.
know. But right now,
But it's good to give yourself a break too.
Yeah. Yeah. And like I said, it just never. It never ended up being. I was never like, man, thank God I drank last night. That
Right.
was really a good idea.
I almost did get shit faced last night. What was I thinking?
Yeah, thank God I did that. So, I just haven't in a while.
I wanted to say something. You said, like, we're all worried about what everyone's thinking about us, and it's hard to let that go. Isn't it funny that literally all of us are just thinking about ourselves and what everyone perceives about us?
Yeah.
Nobody's really thinking about you because they're thinking about what you think of them.
Yeah, it's crazy, right?
And we still can't seem to release it.
The other thing that is hard was easy for me to let go of as soon as it was put to me like this. My dad said it to me. I said something to him about something somebody said to me online, and he goes, "You know that person?" I go, no. And he goes, are you ever going to meet that person? I was like, no. And he was like, did you know that person existed before they sent? And I go, no. And he was like, who gives a fuck?
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, you're right. He goes, look, there are millions of people who don't know you, who may have an opinion on you, but they haven't shared it with you. Does that bother you? Does it bother? And I go, no. And he goes, so if they don't have your last name, if you don't know them, their opinion of you should not affect how you walk about your day to day. And I was like, yeah, you're so right.
Your dad should write a book or something.
My dad also one time said something to me that blew my mind. Okay, as an adult, I did this thing. We did a roast for one of my favorite baseball players, a guy named David Ortiz. I'm from Boston, right?
Yeah.
We planned a roast for him. It was super fun. We had a great time. I invited my dad there. My brother was there. My son was there. And my wife. And my dad is a huge Red Sox fan. It was fun to have him there. And after the show, he said to me, and we were sitting down at dinner, and he was so excited. He was like, you know what? If this comedy thing doesn't work out, you could produce shows. Now, I don't know about you guys. I've been doing this a long time. One of the things that gets under my skin and still does, and I wish it didn't, is when my friends or somebody I know from my past will be like, are you still doing that comedy thing? You mean my fucking job? Is that what you're referring to? The thing that has been providing for me yeah, I'm still doing that comedy thing. And my dad has heard me say that. And I went off harder than I should have. And I went up into my room, and I was laying in bed with my wife, and I was like, I feel so bad for my dad. I shouldn't have gone off on him.
Yeah.
And I'm going to apologize to him tomorrow, because he's my dad, man. And, he was really just proud of me. And actually what he said to me was, have you ever thought of if comedy didn't work out to start producing shows? And I apologized to him. I go, I'm really sorry. And he goes, you don't have to apologize. And I said, why? And he goes, well, I asked you a question, right? And I said, yeah. And he goes, well, then I can't be mad at your answer. I asked you a question. I needed your opinion. You gave me your opinion. So I can't be mad at your answer. If I don't want the answer, I shouldn't ask you the question. And I was like, yo.
Pops is bringing the knowledge, man.
And so I was like,
You have the best dad.
From that point forward, like I never got, when I asked someone a question, if they gave me an answer I didn't like, I never got mad from that point forward, because it's not up to me to be mad at your answer. If I really don't want to hear it, then I really shouldn't ask it.
Yeah.
So like Pop Wolf, I asked him, I go, did you smoke weed when you used to smoke weed? He was like, no. I'm like, you should. You would.
Man, maybe a little microdosing, God knows what's going to happen. It'll just float away.
This dude is enlightened. Yeah. But pretty crazy, man.
Yeah.
Pretty crazy.
So you went from a young comic to Seattle first, right?
Yeah.
Is that where you began the journey to being a stand-up?
Yeah.
How do you get to Boston to Seattle?
Well, I went to Texas first.
Okay.
I went to college in Texas. And I've always had a little bit of wanderlust.
Yeah.
And I never quite understood people who grew up in a town and stayed there, because you can always go back. But you tell me you don't want to see anything else?
Right.
Right.
Like it's nothing. You go back to your hometown. I know a lot of people did, but you don't want to see anything else? Like that?
Yeah.
You don't want to meet different types of people at all?
Right.
Okay.
And you find out within the 50 states, it's like traveling the world almost. The topography, the people, you want hot, you want cold, you want beach, you want mountains. What do you want? I mean, you can get it all here.
When we drove cross country just recently from California to Nashville, when we hit Nashville, and I had done it before, I asked my wife, I go, what was the best thing about the drive? And she said, I wish we could fast forward it. I go, what do you mean? She goes, but because watching the literal topography change, watching the United States visually change as I drove across country was something I have never done before. To watch it to go from desert, like original desert, like
the moon,
Arizona, but then to like New Mexico desert, which is completely different with different colors and all that. And then she was like, it was so cool just to drive through. And you're right, man. The States, come on.
You don't have to travel the world to get that education. You can, and there's little countries of people acting differently all throughout too.
100%.
Which is a blast for us when we go touring. I love meeting people from all. The South gets shit on a bunch. The Yankees get shit on. Blah blah blah. They're really all kind of the same with different accents.
Yes.
Which is just it's hilarious and infuriating the way we're pitted against one another. because literally 90% of the people in the States agree on basically everything. And the other 10%, they're like, just leave me the fuck alone about it. That's all just leave me alone, let me do my thing.
I tell people all the time, it's in southern states and northern. I'm like, and I'll be like, well, I was just in Arkansas, and the people in the north will laugh. I'm like, don't laugh. They look just like fucking you. I don't know what you're laughing at. They look like you. So
I learned that early. One of the first bands I was in, we played here and went and played in Pittsburgh. I'm like, oh, so there's rednecks everywhere. They just talk differently.
Same people.
Yeah.
Same fucking people.
Yeah, they say yins, we say y'all.
Yeah, it's the same people. So, but I it's my favorite part of this job.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, you get paid to travel. What? When I figured that out, that's what my grandpa was doing. I was like, we got to figure out how to do that.
Yeah. Well, and if you can travel like your grandpa.
Well, yeah,
we're
not even traveling like my grandpa.
I mean, but I agree. Why not go see shit? Do you know what I mean? Like, why? There are so many cool things to see in this country, and if you live here in Nashville, so much cool shit just within a 6-hour drive.
Yeah.
Oh, that's one of the best things about living here is within 10 hours we go play.
Yeah.
And you can hit until you hit Texas and beyond. Everything else pretty much is in play.
I drove to Des Moines. Now it's 11 hours.
Yeah.
But I was like, I'm just going to run over my act in my car. I like that time by myself.
I do too.
I'll put on some music. I'll run over my whole act. I'll write new jokes. I write well in the car. I don't know about you guys.
I think I've written every song I've ever written driving to and from a shitty job or whatever. I think maybe because your brain
autopilot maybe.
I think the shit that your brain gets in the way has to concentrate subliminally on the driving part maybe.
Yeah.
You just get drony in the other part of your brain like it opens something else up. Totally.
Shower too. There's something about that white noise that drowns everything else out. And I can write a joke.
That's hilarious. The shower's the same way. I keep a notebook outside the shower to come out and go, write that down real quick.
Do you guys write? Okay. I'm just going to get into artist nerd shit. But so when I write jokes, and mostly I write on stage. But when I
write them out?
Or
write them out?
If I write them, I'm way more creative with a pen than I am with my computer.
Okay.
So for whatever reason, if I really want to get into a joke, I got to get my notebook out and my pen. I can write down ideas and stuff, but when I start typing, I start writing words that I don't use in my normal vernacular.
Oh, interesting.
So when I write, like I wrote my book all on my computer. Uh-huh. But if I'm writing jokes, if I start to write them out on my computer, for whatever reason, I'm writing it like a news article or like a book, and I'm using words that I would never use.
I think I'm afflicted with that. I do that with texts. Like trying to flower them up a little bit. I don't want to sound like a fucking idiot.
Yeah.
That's a funny word to put, but it's not really what I would talk like.
Yeah. You're like, how many
sounds
C's
like
are
me.
necessary?
Yeah, exactly. Damn you, autocorrect.
Damn it.
One more than necessary.
Yeah. That's interesting. Yeah, I like the notebook. Do you guys use notebook?
I do the notebook thing or a voice memo. Well, singing and melody, I put it down on a voice memo. But also, my thing is if I can't remember it, it's not a good melody.
That's so interesting.
It's got to be stuck in my head for me to know, okay, we have to write this because this is good,
Yeah,
I'm the melody gal, and then he comes in and rocks it all up and arranges it all, and he's the
punk rock roots there.
Yeah.
But what can you do?
I like the punk rock.
Yeah, me too. Well, Seattle, you were right in the midst of the whole punk rock. Timing was probably grunge city right about the time you arrived.
I lived a tenth of a mile down the street from Cobain when he killed himself.
Oh my God.
I couldn't get to my house. So for 3 days, they had the street blocked off. I had a driver's license it was a New York driver's license. In order to get to your house, you needed to show you lived there because there were so many look-see-loos.
Oh God, I can imagine.
And so I had a New York, so I had to park away and walk to my house. But it was insane. It was insane. I used to see him in a long trench coat mid-July sitting out by just sweating. Mm. Yeah, he was not a healthy dude.
Yeah. Why didn't he just take off his trench coat?
I think, when he had, heroin is a whatever.
And he apparently had a hang up about how skinny he was. He would wear a bunch of clothes to look.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah, it could be bullshit. I read in a book somewhere, but.
Is that what started
I think
the whole
I read
look?
that too. I don't know.
No, I think Seattle's cold and rainy and shit. And it's kind of that punk rock thing. This is what we wear.
Yeah.
So we're just going to wear what we wear when we go up and play. We're not dressing up for anybody.
It was a great time though. I ran and owned part of this place called El Lobo Loco. and it had an upstairs, downstairs. And one Sunday afternoon, I get a call from a guy. He was like, "Hey, I'm the manager for this band called Presidents of the United States of America, and they're just looking for. They want to play an all-age show, and can we use your basement?" And I had never heard of them. I was like, "That's a terrible name for a band.
They're never going to make it.
That's a mouthful." You know what I mean? But yeah, if you guys want, and I'd never heard of them, but apparently the locals had. And it was like jammed, but it was such a crazy time. Chris and I want to make. I'm pretty sure I got this right, but Chris Cornell's sister was the barista out in front of my place, and she had a voice from like I'm like, what's happening in your family? But you would see these people just come down. There was a place called Central, and there's a place called Larry's, and people would just pop in. It was quite a time, man, and really, "Smells Like Teen Spirit" is one of the few songs I remember where I was when I heard it the first time.
Right.
Where were you?
I was in a car. I was in a cafeteria. I was in school in San Antonio, and my buddy walked in, and I hear a guy named Matt Dustling, and he goes, "Wolf!" And I go, hey, he goes, "Come here." I go, "What's up?" He goes, "Come here," because he knows I like music, and he goes, "Come out to the car." And he goes, "I just saw this band in Austin last night." He was like, "You got to listen to the CD. I got to play you this song."
And as soon as the drums kick in, you're like,
I still get chills thinking about that very first. I had never heard anything like that.
Right.
And the energy that was coming through.
and at the time too, because Michael Jackson was top of the charts then.
Yeah. Yeah. And where was GNR? Was GNR just coming out of GNR? I think we were just coming out of GNR.
They were kind of the last of the biggies. You know,
Yes.
still kind of real rock and roll, but you know, I'm sure
And
the
the-
younger punks were like, fuck
Yeah,
Guns
they
N'
did not
Roses.
like.
Yeah.
They did not like those guys.
Which is funny because Duff's from Seattle.
yeah,
the bass player,
And you don't. It's just as far as attitude. You don't get a whole lot more punk than GNR was.
Dude, their first record is still amazing, or Appetite.
Yeah.
Amazing. Still sounds great.
Oh, yeah.
It's one of those records that's going to sound good for the end of time.
I was, yeah, there, but the Nirvana, I can tell you he was the first artist for me. I like lyrics. One of the
Right.
reasons I like Your Grandfather, and I like country music, and I like, say, Adam Duritz.
Mm-hmm.
I like to hear your story. You know, one thing about the County Crows, and say what you want, Duritz turns up his vocals live.
Right.
Because he wants you to hear his. Now, a lot of bands don't. And I'm like, what is he saying? No, Duritz, you're going to hear what I have to say.
Right.
And that may be ego or whatever, but I love it. If you have a story, I want to hear that story. Nirvana was the first band where I was like, I don't know what he's saying, but I don't give a fuck.
Yeah.
I don't know.
You felt what he was saying, you know?
I felt it. I don't know what he's trying to say. I don't want to interpret your art. I want you to tell me the story.
Right.
That makes a good song if you can feel what they're saying and without even hearing. Right? Like the
Yes.
music matches the feeling and the.
And the video did too.
Oh,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
a perfect. It was, you know, a lot of it is timing and luck. But man, they were the perfect band with the perfect producer at the time and the perfect just little window to just kick the fucking door down, you know?
And he was so good at coming up with a lick that was pop,
Oh yeah,
But
it was well masked pop.
but putting it in something in a sound we hadn't heard before.
well, apparently, this Smells Like Teen Spirit was they were fucking around, changing the chords slightly to More Than a Feeling. That's where the riff came from. And think about it. It's the exact same riff. And he was like, we were
I
at
didn't know
practice and
that.
we were fucking around and I changed a couple chords and we played it as a joke at a few parties. And then, you know, Butch Vig heard it and was like, hey, what's that one you're doing?
Yeah,
So,
especially.
you know, a lot of things, just pure luck and just, you know, it's weird that with a band or a band, not like an artist with a backing band, but with like those guys, you take one of the pieces out and it's not the same at all.
Yeah.
They didn't really grow up together. Dave was the last guy in. They were a band, but something about those three dudes playing, you know?
Yeah, pretty crazy.
Yeah.
because they didn't they have another drummer before Dave?
Before he got there, like early on.
Yeah.
But I guess once you
That
get
guy
Dave-
doesn't feel good. Him and Pete Best, they're like, mother.
Yeah. Poor Pete Best. Oh man, Nirvana's one thing, but the Beatles, ouch.
Pete Best. Look, Pete Best. If I was Lennon and McCartney, I'd have been just like, here's a little money.
Here's 10%.
I'm so sorry. Because
we told you.
Yeah, you made a bad choice, my man. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Like, we had something. Yeah, that's got to be the worst one ever, isn't it?
I would think so. So when you're in Seattle, is it, I just want to be a stand-up?
Yes.
Or did you have any idea of like, maybe I want to do TV, or is it just like, I want to be a stand-up comedian?
Well, it started out stand-up. And then I got a couple of gigs up there. I got hired by Nintendo. I got hired by Microsoft.
Oh yeah, I heard you interviewed Bill Gates for some.
Interviewed Bill Gates.
Was there any inclination back then that he was trying to chip everybody and eating babies and
you know what? He actually was munching on a baby when I interviewed him. So
offered you one.
Yeah. He was like, "What style baby you like?" I'm like, "I'm good. Actually, can you send me home?" I know a lot of people went grilled, but I went boiled because I just wanted all the
Not
fat
fried,
off
huh?
it. Yeah, you know what I mean.
I understand. I hear the soup is good
Yes.
too. But
Yeah, he's eating babies. That's why he's so smart.
yeah.
Yeah.
I think I just threw us off
I know.
here.
I don't even know how to go back.
But when I realized, there's other things to do. But
Right.
I just started doing stand-up. And then I got hired to do some spokesperson stuff. I'm like, well, that was kind of fun. And then I did some voiceover stuff. I'm like, well, that was kind of fun. And it wasn't until I got to LA that I really was like, oh, there's so much more to do. And, the latest pivot happened last March when everyone went into quarantine. Mm-hmm. But, I'm kind of ADD-ish. So the pivots for me are daily.
Bored with this, time to move to that.
But I will tell you, and I think you guys, look where we are right now, right?
Right.
You have to adapt.
Mm-hmm.
That's what this is all about.
Yeah.
You have to adapt. And the truth of the matter is, what I really landed on, which is going to sound stupid, I like creating. I like being creative.
Mm-hmm.
So whatever that happens to be at the time, I'm good with. I like it. I love meeting new people. I love talking to people.
Yeah.
So this new part of it, I love. But for me, it's all about staying creative and still finding things that bring me joy.
Yeah, because I wonder, it's kind of like like in music, there's the people that write songs, do their own material. There's people that can do that, but they're also an amazing guitar player or something, and they find session work.
Yeah.
Which they're playing other people's stuff, but they're still playing music. And there's some people that can't write anything, and what their deal is playing session jobs.
Yeah.
If you get them, you can stick around. And I don't know if it's the same, but it seems like with comedy and writing and being a stand-up, there's those that they're just a fucking stand-up. That's what they do.
Yep.
That's what they're best at. There's some that can do both, and then there's some that they need a vehicle to get their humor through, like a TV show or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And the writing gigs seem to be, if you can land one, way more stable. And, there seems to be, because you're working for something else or somebody else, maybe a little less of, I don't get to do exactly what I want to do in those situations, kind of a trade-off for stability. And I picture you as one of those guys that can write songs and is also a great drummer. So you can get plenty of session work that you want it. But when you're doing the session work, do you ever go, yeah, I really miss doing my thing, just all my thing, which might not be as financially stable, but man, it feels good,
I've written on a bunch of TV shows. I wrote on Chelsea Lately for a little while. I wrote on a show called Yes Dear. I wrote on Will Smith's show called All of Us. I've written on a bunch of stuff. And they were all fun at the time.
Right.
But they all ended the same way with me saying, yeah, I like creating. I don't want to create all day for other people. Yeah. And that's all it was.
Yeah.
That's all it was. And also writers' rooms for me, I like them, but I can't sit in a room 8 hours a day. Like that's just not, I just can't do it. So, but I did, and I loved writing for Chelsea, and I had a great time on there. But I told her when I left, I love you. Thank you so much for the opportunity. But
That's where I was introduced to you. I mean, it was probably 13, 14 years ago, right? When you were...
I mean, I
think it was
think that show ended in 2014.
And
it was
I
on
just
for 7
remember-
years.
Yeah. And I mean, I have twin boys and they're almost 14. So I remember nursing them and watching you on Chelsea Lately, me seeing you for the first time on it. And I was actually in Texas because taking 6-month-old twins on a road trip to Texas was awful.
sounds smart.
I haven't taken them. I haven't taken them anywhere since. They're almost 14. They haven't been anywhere.
You had a trip, don't you remember?
Right. Through my fallopian tubes and there's the last trip you're taking. Both of you at the same time, you little fuckers, too.
Spending most of the time in Texas on a couch watching TV and seeing you there, and I was an immediate fan then. But yeah, that was almost like 13 years ago.
Yeah.
That was one of my, okay, so I really do try to have, my youngest son has an attitude that I wish I had, and I try to have. My youngest son attitude is, wherever he is really the best place he's ever been. It's such
Wow.
do you know what I mean?
Wonder if he can hold on to that. How long can he hold on to that,
He's
man?
24.
Wow.
Holy shit.
He's just, he accepts.
Sounds like Bob Marley, man.
Dude, I'm telling you, he accepts where he is. And
Is he single? My sister's 24.
He's not. He just
Okay.
for you. But he accepts where he is, takes it in, and is like, this place is great. I love this place. And he'll point out the good things. And like,
Oh my God, life's gonna be so good for him. I mean, only good things are gonna come his way.
I've really tried recently to do that. And so, like, when I look back at the years on Chelsea, man, I got to go to work every day with 5 or 6 of my closest friends. All we did is laugh. That's it, and make fun of other people, and then we got paid. What's happening? And when I look back on how lucky, I wish I had recognized it in the moment.
Yeah.
Because there was a moment there, looking back on it, where that show was really massive.
Oh,
Huge.
yes.
Oh, huge.
And I guess none of us really understood it. I think the first time I understood it was after Radio City Music Hall. She had me open for her, and we walked out the side door. It was me and a couple of the people on the show, Brad Wallach, I think Sarah Colonna and Heather McDonald. I think they were all there. And there was just a wall of people. They had been, sectioned off. And I'm like, and we walked out. They were like, yeah. I was like, what?
And they're just there to scream at you as you walk by, and that's it.
Happening right now.
Yeah.
It was so crazy. It was so crazy, and I wish I had really taken it in a little more in the moment. But so appreciative of being able to do that, and the opportunities that have come since then. Like, I get how fleeting this all is. So for me to be able to do this for so long.
Well, that's what it goes back to you being able to figure out how to do it for so long.
Yeah.
That comes with just opening your brain up, I guess, to, everything. We've had to accept the fact that you're not going to make a dime from people listening to your music unless it's on a commercial, because Spotify came around. Well, you can sit around and bitch about that all you want.
Yeah.
But it's here. It ain't changing.
Yeah.
So you have to figure out, do you quit? Or do you figure out a way? It's kind of flipped itself. It's like you used to make a record and sell it to make money and you go out and tour. Now you make a record so you can go out and sell T-shirts and charge people to come in. The music is just almost like...
So you guys don't make money off your music. It used to be that the people who wrote the music made good dough, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
And we
was-
own everything because
Was
we're
that
just
from the
independent.
spins on the radio? Is that what it
Yeah,
was from?
spins on the radio. People like...
We're not
and
on mainstream radio,
Not only
though.
that, but if you wanted to hear a song, back to your point, you had to go purchase a CD.
Yeah.
So that money, half of it went, well, depending on the label setup, but technically half goes to the writer, half goes to whoever's playing on the record. So
Mechanical.
for us, we would own everything. So if we sold a CD and we had no label, we would just get all the money. But now, since nobody's actually buying the CDs and Spotify plays...
like 0.007 cents a s-
I think it's even
stream.
less than that.
Yeah, it might be 0.00007 cents a stream.
But how do they? Excuse me. Sorry. How do they get away with that? So
Well, here's how they get away with it.
do you send them your music? Is that what happens?
Yes.
And you
Our
say, play
distribution,
this
yeah.
for us
Yes.
for free.
Yes.
And basically, Spotify has everyone convinced you need us.
Yes. Because they sort of cornered the market on, they gave away music for free, literally just an entire library of
And
music.
you can't have an artist account without having a regular membership.
But how they kind of, it's sort of a shell game.
But how did they originally convince artists to
They
give?
didn't convince artists, they convinced labels. And the labels could have, the major labels could have gone, we're not giving you our artist until you pay us a legitimate royalty rate. Well, what happens is you can't. There's no books for Spotify. You can't really tell.
Yeah.
But they've done these deals where they'll go, well, I'll tell you what, label, we'll cut you in for a certain percent or give you stock in Spotify. So you can get the money from the stock that our company's making that we're not going to, you don't have to pay it to the artist, obviously. But in order to get this, we'll give you, it's a shell game.
So the company made money, so say Columbia or whatever, they made money, but they didn't pass any down to
No,
you.
they made money because they have stock in Spotify. So it's like a dividends payoff, not a cash payoff. So
And how do the artists, is there any way the artists can get together? Like what can happen?
that's the problem.
there's no union, right?
Everybody could just say, don't upload your shit on Spotify. But the problem is people are used to getting music for free now. It's hard to get somebody to subscribe.
Yeah. Can't
I
put
mean,
the
you
genie
could-
back in the bottle.
Yeah. They could have done it back in the day because like the argument is, well, people aren't going to pay, $12 for me. I'm like, think of the amount of the cable bill you used to pay. Just ridiculous amounts of money and bitch about it and bitch about it and bitch about it. But you wanted cable, so you pay it. So if they would have just stood strong at the beginning and go, yeah, you can get all the desperate ones, but if you want the real artists, we're not doing it until you pay us a proper royalty. But they didn't go
didn't
that
do it.
route. They figured out a way around it because there's very few people left at the labels that really care.
when Sirius play, like Sirius XM,
Satellite radio is different.
satellite radio, when they play our music,
Yeah.
you do get some money for that.
It's like old school radio.
And what about terrestrial radio? Is that still a thing?
Only like Cumulus owns the mainstream
Yeah, there's
radio.
2 or 3 huge corporations that basically own all of the radio
But
stations.
I think country music is still pretty big on terrestrial, right?
I would imagine that's one of the few that is still. And, there's still, I'm shocked, but people flip on the classic rock channel. Nobody's listening to new music.
No, right.
But it's all our age and
Listening
just
to-
used to it,
Yeah, they're listening to more.
But
than
even
a
then, the
feeling.
playlists have shrunk and shrunk and shrunk. It was back when I think Clinton was in office when they deregulated radio and let these huge corporations own all chunks of radio stations.
Yeah.
So then they just start farming out the playlist from headquarters.
we blame Clinton.
Why not?
Yeah, gotta blame somebody.
I mean, yeah, it's nice to blame somebody.
Yeah. But it's but back to the point is what are you gonna do? Sit around and bitch about it or figure out, all right, well, we got screwed there. How do we
Yeah.
pivot?
And you have to.
Have
Yeah.
to.
And I would assume that would come into like, okay, now this is a crazy idea, but say you go, you know what, I'm going to do all this by myself. I'm going to rent a field. I'm going to get some insurance for the field. I'm going to set up a stage. I'm going to own the merch. I'm going to own the food. And I'm going to do a couple concerts like this. Is that a possible thing? I'm going to like, is secure, like, is insurance and all that too much to worry about for bands to do that?
For bands, but there's a few independent promoters. There was the Muddy Roots Festival, this guy here
yeah.
in town that would do just that. He'd find a field out in Cookville or something. It's camping, all this, and he had sort of, not as massive as the Deadheads, but
Yeah.
sort of a crew. He'd have like punk bands, rockabilly, that kind of thing, and just out in a field. And I don't know why anybody would want to open a club or do a festival just because.
Yeah.
We've played some that we've gotten guarantees for and shown up and like, so nobody's here, and the guy's just lost his ass. We're like,
But I've found, man, with comedy clubs, the more I can really talk to the people like, hey, we're in this together, man. Just know I'm not out to get you.
right.
We're in this together. Like, you make money, I make money. I
Yeah.
make money, you make money. So let's figure out the best way to do this. But if you're going to, if we're both doing shady shit, we're both going to end up with less.
Fucked, yeah.
So let's figure out, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I've really, in the last 5 or 6 years, I just say it. I just say it
Will you do
now.
it for us? Will you be that guy?
Yeah, I just say it. And I'm like, all right, like the worst thing you can do is say no, or the worst thing you can do is I can hurt your feelings, and then you can go home and be a grown up or whatever,
Right.
But because I'm not a person who gets his feelings hurt, and I'm not a rude dude, and I'm,
No.
you know what I mean? But I'm gonna tell you how I feel.
Right.
Yeah.
So in comedy, if somebody is shitting on your act, as long as they're saying, I don't like it, like if somebody hates the music I'm playing, I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
Because I like
Subjective.
certain things and a lot of certain things, but I don't like a lot of popular stuff. So
Yeah.
why would I assume I don't understand why people get their feelings hurt about their art.
Unless
they're trying to attack you personally for some nonsense, calling you a Nazi or something.
Yeah. But if you're going to tell me you don't like it, like for example, who's a good example? Rush. If you played a Rush song right now, I might choke you out.
Right.
I've just a good chance. If you followed it with a Yes song, we're definitely fighting.
Jethro Tull, you're out.
But like I can objectively look at Rush and go like, okay, great musicians. I get it.
Right.
I understand why some people like it, but I want to jump out of a window when I hear it.
I'm with you.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But like that shouldn't hurt anyone's.
It doesn't hurt their feelings.
It doesn't.
There's a great documentary on them. Even if you're not a fan, you should watch. I think it's called All the World's a Stage.
Yeah.
It's fantastic.
Do I have to hear that dude sing? Because I'll throw a shoe at the TV.
It's not a lot of concert footage.
his
What
voice.
They address it in the documentary.
Oh, do they?
They're the most self-deprecating three dudes.
Are they?
Ever. Oh my god.
They don't look like rock stars
No,
either.
and they sound like us sitting around talking. I swear to God, it's like this is Rush.
I might check it out. I still
Interesting
don't
like
want to
that.
hear. Song.
Yeah, I gotcha.
Tom Sawyer.
I wonder what I want to ask you about. I've been meaning to ask comedians on here. Last Comic Standing. That was kind of like, I mean, there were comedy shows. That was the first contest on, and I think about it like in
like
terms,
American Idol?
Yeah, in terms of like American Idol. The difference as I think about it is I think American Idol was taking musicians that were
Or singers, vocalists.
singers.
Yeah.
They were just basically in their mom's house or coffee shops or whatever. Hadn't really done anything. So unless you won it, and even if you won it, you got screwed. But unless you won it, it was kind of jive, and you didn't really get anything out of it. But with Last Comic Standing, could be a little jive, but it was people that were actually doing it. You know, they had at least 3 or 4 or 5 years under their belt, some a lot longer. And it seemed like that show, at least early on, would give comedians way better exposure than, say, American Idol. I don't know how much comedians shit on the show.
Yeah, they shit on the show a lot.
Yeah, we shit on American Idol too. You know?
And early on, I think it was probably a little more legit. I was on it.
Yeah,
and
I remember.
I will tell you, it was a horrible experience for me because they really homogenized you and your set. So they were like, hey, so you got to wear a collared shirt and a jacket. I'm like, that's not me.
Wow.
I said, I don't even know. And so as an artist, one of the things that is so important is that you feel like you when you walk on stage.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, so I've been wearing a hat since I was 12. So no hat, jacket, collared shirt. That's my wedding.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, that's a funeral. But so when I walk on stage, right away, I'm not comfortable. I'm not comfortable. This isn't me delivering these jokes. And all I can think of is they're staring at something or they're looking at, And so I didn't love it also because it's not really a comedy contest. Like,
Oh, yeah. Especially after year 2
they're
or so.
picking, they know who they want.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so, and I also think it does a disservice to comedy because what it did, not, the first couple of years, they had some legit dudes and women, and Eliza Schlesinger was on there. And, but on the whole, it was like, so you brought comedy to a group of people in the country who had never seen comedy. And they're like, these are the best? Because if they're on a TV show,
That's a good point.
and they're like, and then what happens is that if you win or you come in second, the comedy club goes, you're headlining. And you really won the contest with 10 minutes of material.
And dude, how much hatred comes your way at that point when you're headlining over somebody that's been in the game for 15 years?
Well, what happens is it's just bad for comedy. So for me, I don't like it. I don't begrudge you and your success. But when you
Yeah.
go and bomb for a weekend, those people aren't coming back to a comedy show.
Yeah.
You're not ready for it. They think you are. They think this is what stand-up is, and you eat dicks.
And it's
Do you
their
know what I
first,
mean?
their first exposure. Hell, fuck it. I've never been to a comedy show.
Right. I'm gonna
Dak
go.
fans coming to town. Let's go.
Poor Dad. He
Oh,
caught
God.
more shit.
Man,
That-
did you see him on
I
the
felt bad for him.
on Tough Crowd when he was on and Patrice was on there and Jim Norton?
He's
Oh
in a
my God, I
league.
felt so bad for the guy, but they put him on the couch with trained killers, and they were relentless. I
Did
went
you
back
see
and
the
watched-
Patrice documentary?
I did.
I need to watch this because
Listen,
That dude.
truth teller. did not give a fuck.
Everybody says they don't give a fuck.
He didn't.
Very few people truly.
Stanhope.
Yeah.
Another one. He was
Yeah.
One of my favorite
we'll tell you
stand-up
later.
jokes. And this is an old stand-up joke. And this is maybe long-haired Doug Stanhope. By the way, Doug Stanhope had sex with my fiance.
Oh, fantastic! I wish we'd have known this when we talked to him.
You could have asked him about it. He'd have been like, "Yeah, I'm really sorry about that." I remember he called me like the next day. He was like, "Man, I'm really sorry. I'm really sorry." And she wasn't my fiance. She was, I mean, the mother of my kids, but we weren't.
Yeah.
But he was like, "Man, I'm really sorry. I'm really sorry I had sex with her." I'm like, "Yeah, dude, all right."
Wait,
Like,
did you know?
I almost couldn't be mad at him. He was like, "I'm so sorry."
Did
I'm
you
like,
know before he told you?
I forget. Maybe
Okay.
she had told me.
Okay.
But Stanhope, one of my favorite Stanhope jokes ever. And again, this was, so guys like this, anybody who makes me go, are we allowed to say that? Right?
Yeah.
And one thing he doesn't get enough credit for is how intelligent his stand-up is. His stand-up, like,
oh,
Yeah.
if you're willing to go there and if the subject matter, if you're not going to just jump in on the subject matter and go, I can't listen. If you're going to
you've got to wait it out.
if you listen to him, he's got a fucking point. One of my favorite things he ever said was when he was talking about pedophiles. He was like, listen, man, nobody wants to fuck your ugly kid, okay? He was like, stop pretending like everybody wants to fuck your kid. Everybody does not want to fuck your kid. I was like, oh, what's happening? Just to say that, the ridiculousness of it is so funny. To me, Stanhope is a true original. And now he wears those fucking suits with those ridiculous fucking
His hair
He had a mohawk.
I guess.
A red mohawk is what he had.
He looks like an alcoholic clown.
Yes.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Although I think most clowns are probably alcoholics. But
That's a good point. If not, they're on their way.
yeah. I used to entertain at children's parties, and I used to also own a moped. And
The kind you had to pedal to start. It was.
I did have one of those
That old
when I was,
school.
yeah. Oh, I remember the first time I was pedaling on. I had one of those, and I had stolen a bunch of booze from my parents, and I'd put it in a mason jar, and I was, keeping it till I had my first date. And I had this date with this girl, and I put her on the back of the moped, and I'd put a little orange juice in my mason jar concoction, to make it taste good. But I didn't know at the time that orange juice went bad.
Oh.
And so
Oh God.
I gave it to her, and we're driving around, and she was riding, threw up this close to my neck, right on my neck.
Oh.
It was, it was like,
high pressure. Spackling
down the back of my, but I will tell you something. Not a deal breaker for me. I was still ready to have sex. I was in high school, so I was like,
It was on your back.
We're still doing it, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
my front's clean.
still good,
It's all on the
pristine,
back.
still feeling good. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, orange juice vomit.
It was not great. I had a moped when I lived in LA when I first got there, and I entertained at children's parties. And the person who owned the company made me drive in costume. He was like, "You can't show up and change." And I was like, "I own a moped, man." He was like, so there was one time I was on my moped in a Peter Pan costume. And so my moped, the muffler broke, so it sounded like a Harley. So if you heard you'd turn down the street, and it was me on a moped
In a Peter Pan costume.
in a Peter Pan costume. So I'm sitting at a light, and I'm like, right, and in a Peter Pan costume, and a cop pulls up next to me, and he rolls down his window, and he goes, "Hey," and I go, "Yeah," and he goes, "I was gonna give you a ticket for no helmet, but looks like your life's going bad enough as it is." And he just drove away, and I was like, "This just dropped a hammer on me."
That sounds like a Patrice line.
Yeah, he dropped a hammer on me. Yeah.
Well, also a helmet would have fucked up the Peter Pan look.
100%. I'm
So
like,
you can't
this
do
is
that.
not. Peter Pan doesn't wear
They
a
don't make a
helmet.
three-cornered helmet. Come on now.
Come on, man, get with it, dude. My
like-
son, I asked him. I go, "Hey, I'm gonna put this story online." I tell a lot of jokes about him, and he was like, "All right." And my deal with him always was, I won't tell the story on stage until you're okay with telling it. So my stories about him were always like 4 years behind.
Right.
But I asked him last week, I think. I was like, "How you feel about that YouTube stuff?" He was like, "Dude, it was the best thing." He said, "It really bothered me for about 6 months. And now nothing bothers me. And now I realize how ridiculous it is. Like what anybody else says, it doesn't change who I am."
Yeah.
And he was like, "It really ended up being the best thing. It's changed, I don't get upset walking around at things like that anymore because I realize how it doesn't matter.
Yeah. Who cares?
Yeah. So I was like, "You're welcome," and he was like, "I wouldn't go that far." He called himself the indirect breadwinner of the family. He was like, "All your jokes are about me, so I should probably get at least 10%."
That's hilarious.
Yeah. He's not wrong.
Right.
You know,
He
not
makes good
wrong.
points. Yeah.
He's not wrong.
When did you move to
I love
Nashville?
Austin.
October.
Oh, so very recently.
Yeah, we were here in time for the snow, though. That's nice.
Fuck. Yeah.
What'd you think of that?
Well, I grew up in
Oh,
Massachusetts.
so you're used to.
Yeah, but you're used to snowplows too.
I'm also. You know,
Oh, yeah,
people
we're
are like,
stuck.
Yes.
When when it happens, we just shut down till it's over.
One of the main reasons I left the Northeast was because I hate the snow.
Yeah, me too.
I like to watch
Not
it
a fan.
fall on TV.
It's pretty. That's
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
I don't need to go out in it. I slipped. I bit it so hard. My dog, we were walking down the hill, and it was the first day, and I hadn't noticed the ice. And he pulled me, and I went up in the air, and he kept running. So
Oh
when
my
I was in the
God.
air, he pulled me a little further.
Oh my god.
It's a shame there's no video of that. If you're gonna take the pain, you might as well have it on. You know.
I said the same thing. I'm like, nobody's got their Ring camera on?
And if you were wearing that outfit you were talking about,
Peter Pan.
No,
that one or
fur coat?
the fur coat with the glasses.
That would have been good.
That would have been good.
Did you get hurt though when he did that? Did
Yeah.
it, like concussion? Type?
No, I landed square on my back. And,
Oh,
like
fuck.
square. And it was like a horror movie because we have some big picture windows on our looking out the front. So I was right in front of my house. So I'm on the ground and I was calling to my wife and I could see her. It was like the beginning of Scream, you know, when someone dies but nobody else can hear them.
Right.
I was calling to her, Beth! And she was just in the house. I'm like, Beth! I could just see her and I was waving to her, Beth!
She's like, yeah.
No, she didn't even look. She did nothing. And when I finally, I had to crawl back up to the house because when I lay, no, it's super funny. When I land on the ground, my dog thinks I'm playing. So every time I get up on all fours, he keeps knocking my hands out from under me. So I am literally hitting the ground every 2 seconds. He's half American Bulldog, half Pit. So there's no way for me to solid.
Yeah,
So
man.
he'll take a little running start and run into me because that's how we play. But I'm not ready for it. And so he keeps jumping on me, jumping over me. I'm literally, I couldn't stand, so I had to crawl back to the front door. My wife sees me crawling to the front door. And when I open the door, this is exactly what she says to me. She goes, "What the fuck are you doing?"
Like 30-minute ordeal. You're
I was like,
wet.
"You didn't even screaming your name on that." She's like, "No, what's wrong?" I'm like, "Don't forget it." Forget it. Doesn't matter. Forget it. You know, it was like
That's hilarious.
Yeah, it was something to see for sure. Yeah.
So did you?
But we quarantine made us get really honest with each other. You know, like you're normally honest with your spouse, but there's usually days off.
Especially being a comedian and being out on the road.
This is how honest it's been getting in my house. We were having sex. She was on top of me. And at one point she looked down at me and she goes, "Hey, your face is really bugging me tonight. Look that way." And I was like, "What?" She goes, "Look that way." She goes, "I can't finish with your face looking like that." I'm like, "So keep looking." She was like, "Yeah, I don't want to see your face." I'm like, "Okay." I was gonna put my I was like, "Wow, this is," and she was like, "Yeah, I'm sorry." She's like, "That too harsh?" I'm like, I
Things
guess
are getting
not."
real at the Wolf household.
I think y'all have the perfect relationship.
Yeah.
She can say that and everything. Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't bother me, man.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't bother. She can feel free to say whatever she wants. I tell her all the time, you know, I'm like, "Look, you can say whatever you want because where the fuck are you going?" You know what I mean? Like,
It's too late for
it's
both
too
of
late
us.
for
Come
both
on.
of us. Like, we're at this point in time, like,
It would just be a hassle.
yeah.
You know?
Do you want to be on Bumble? I don't think so.
And we got to go out and get new friends because,
Yeah.
nobody wants that
It's
hassle.
too late for that. Too late.
So, what made you choose Nashville? 'Cause
Well,
I know
man.
everybody's going to Austin. Some to Florida, I think, but Austin's.
For me, I know so many people in country music. I had other friends here. And I'll tell you something, you know, Beth and I have really developed quite a friendship with Philip and Becky Sweet from Little Big Town. And, you know, it's just nice to have good friends out here.
Yeah.
And I have a friend from college here. I have a couple friends from LA who I genuinely like who moved here. And for me, I need to be in a town with other creative people.
Well, there's a lot of them here.
Yeah. And so, you know, we had looked at Denver and we had looked at Vegas and we looked at Austin. And for me, Denver and Vegas were out because I was like, there's no creativity here. This is
Transients. We're
Yeah.
moving through.
This is a place to go live, but this is not. I need creative mind and creative energy, and do you know what I mean? I
Yeah.
like that the creative soul.
yeah.
I love. I need the town to look like there's a bunch of unemployed people there who aren't actually unemployed. You know,
Exactly.
you know what I mean? That's
Yep.
the look I'm looking for.
Right. Not quite homeless, but
Yeah.
well, looking
Are
like
you
their own way.
homeless or a millionaire? I can't
Right.
tell. Like that.
He's homeless. No, he's got Starbucks. Never mind. Yeah.
When you used to watch, sometimes you'd walk into a restaurant in LA and you'd be like, if I didn't know that was Leonardo DiCaprio, I'd bet that was a homeless dude. You know what I mean? Like,
thrown out, right.
Do you know what I mean? So we like creative people. We had friends. Dorfman, who runs the Zanies down here, one of the best club owners. This is one of the best clubs, one of my favorite clubs. And I believe in your life, you have to shake things up. You can't get comfortable, especially as an artist.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to know what new. My wife too. She's shooting a pilot here starting tomorrow. She's shooting a TV
nice.
show. And so
I'm glad they're doing production again. And
it's very yes.
Here.
They are here.
Yeah.
But we both were like, let's be around some creative people and start a new chapter. And because like people who get stuck in the same chapter, like I'm sure we all know people who are like, they still talk about high school, or the relationships they have with people still feel very high school because they've never closed that chapter.
Right.
So they're just stuck in that chapter for their whole life.
Yeah.
And in order for me to move I got to start a new chapter.
Yeah.
And so we've already I've done a lot of comedy music in Nashville since I've been here. The show I'm doing tonight at Zanies, which if you guys want to come, it's amazing.
I want to come.
And you are welcome to come on the next show and do this. So it's an hour of comedy, and then Philip joins me on stage, and we riff comedy music. We bring people on stage.
No way.
Chris Kirkpatrick came down
yeah.
last time. Who's joined me on stage? Jules joined me on stage before. A guy named Jelly Roll's coming down tonight. Lauren Elena was supposed to. Ashley McBride was supposed to come down this week,
yeah,
but
she's great.
I think we're going to try to get her next month. So we just do comedy music. You can write your own song and come down. We can riff a song. I can write a song for you, and we just jam. Come down. If you want to come down tonight and see what we do, come down.
Yeah.
Come. It's a
What you
ton of
doing tonight?
fun.
I don't know. I don't even know what day it is.
It's Wednesday.
But I would love it. And I would love for you guys to come down and jam. And it's exactly how I like it. One of the things we're doing tonight is something I've always wanted to do. So I got this kid who's never done stand-up before. So he's going to do 5 minutes. By the way, let me tell you how nervous and excited he is.
I bet. Oh my gosh.
3 weeks ago, he sent me a text. Where should I park at Zanies? I'm like,
Wow.
bruh.
Try to get some sleep, my man. You got a long way to go.
I go, did you just ask me where your parking spot is 3 weeks out? I'm like, we'll get to it, man.
That's so cute.
But that's how excited,
Yeah.
right? And so he texted me today, what time are they open? I go, 6. And he goes, can I get there earlier? I'm like, I don't think you need more than an hour to just stare at the, So this kid's coming on stage doing 5 minutes. And then me and 2 other comics are going to rewrite his act and punch up his jokes and send him back up on stage later in the show.
I love it.
That's fantastic.
I think it's a super cool.
How do you know it's 5 minutes? Like how does he know? Or is he like writing something and timing it out?
Probably by the time he gets to 5 minutes, it seemed like an hour and a half, and he's like,
Yeah.
"It's got to be 5 minutes."
Let me ask you a question. When you're on stage and say you're a new musician and you play a song at your house and you're like, that's 3 minutes. On stage, it's going to be 2 minutes and 30 seconds.
Yep.
Exactly right.
Because you're going to be right. And
Well, I never thought about that parallel, but that's exactly right.
Yeah.
It's the
I
same
was
with
a drummer
stand-up.
as I first started out as a kid.
Yeah.
First gig, everything. Just
Your adrenaline is.
and I'm driving the ship, and everybody's like, slow the fuck down. I can't play that fast,
You're like, what are you talking about? This is great.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're Animal from the Muppets.
Exactly. Yeah.
But so same with stand-up. So I told him, I go, 5 minutes your house is 2 minutes on stage. I'm just telling you right now. If you're going to count in laughter, which I'm hoping you get at least some, but all those pauses you're doing in your mirror in your bathroom, you're not going to do any of those. Because you know what you're going to hate? The sound of silence. So you're going to mush words together.
Yeah, I went to Zanies for it wasn't even open mic. I think they called it amateur night. They had one guy that could do it. They had a chick that was a puppeteer and ventriloquist, but this one poor guy, I've never seen it before. He walked up and he froze.
Yeah.
No, but he couldn't recover. Like he's like, yeah, oh, man. Well, and he's just stoned. I'm like, this is the greatest thing I've ever seen and the most uncomfortable I've ever been. And he tried to save himself. He tried to
My
save
hands are
himself.
sweating just thinking about
He
it.
tried to save himself by telling some hack like street joke that the punchline involved him gargling beer and it was supposed to be calm. And I was like, dude.
But you know what's great? Okay, so 3 artists sitting here, we all know that bomb feeling.
Oh, yeah.
So when you say your palms are sweating, that same thing. When I hear somebody bombing, I know that feeling.
Yeah. You
I
wanna
know
save
what's
them.
happening. But at the same time,
Can't look away though.
it's so funny. Like, to watch somebody bomb
You're like,
spectacularly is one of my favorite things. I'm like, I've been there.
Yeah.
Oh, you're shit in the bed.
you're-
You know what I mean? Like, it's so much
There's no
fun.
escape. You're gonna have to eat this when you're done. Oh, I feel bad, dude, but hopefully you can get over it.
I can't wait to make fun of you in the green room. I do really think anybody who has the inkling to be like, I want to try stand up, should try it.
Yeah.
It's such a different experience. And no saying you have to do it a second time. But that feeling of getting up there, just you and that microphone.
So right before the election, I had come up with it, and we had one show we did in Woodstock, and I'd come up with this great joke, and it had Papa Willie songs in it. And I'm trying to
Great joke.
No, it was a great joke, Josh. It was a lot of jokes in one, actually. Tell him it was great. It was a great joke.
Great show, yeah. We do a lot of
but when I was
bad
trying
stand-up
to
in
do
between
it-
songs, to be fair.
I'm trying to do it. We played Bloody Mary Morning really super fast, So it was all leading up to Bloody Mary Morning, but I couldn't remember. I had written these jokes on the way down and read it or not read it, but like recited it to you
You're like,
guys.
shut the fuck up, Raylan. And the bass like,
47
like, turn that up.
We get up there to do it, and I'm taking such big pauses in between each sentence of the jokes because I couldn't remember. How do you remember? As a weed smoker,
Yeah.
how do you remember?
Well, my stories are real.
Yeah,
So-
I definitely just made some shit up.
Do you know what I mean? So my stories
Ding, 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 ding,
my
ding.
stories happen to me. So my stories are a little bit different every night, just because that's for me to keep it fresh. Like I don't memorize. I don't ever want it to sound memorized. So the way to do that is not to memorize it, to know the story, and I might use different words. Punchlines are the same. But,
Yeah.
but for me, it happened.
Yeah.
So it's easy for me to kind of recall. Now, what I do forget, I write parodies. I'll forget words to songs because they don't mean anything to me.
Oh, see, I can remember songs.
But the lyrics don't mean anything. So the jokes mean something to me.
Right.
So I remember them. The lyrics don't.
You're learning a script at that point.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
so it's so much easier for my brain to go, that doesn't matter. So that it's interesting. It's flipped
It's
for
flipped,
us.
yeah.
But what you care about is in your song.
Yeah. But I
lyric,
really
right?
wanted to do a good joke.
Well, I think you should come down to Zandy's, do your 5 minutes. We'll punch it up, and we'll send you back up on stage.
Well, it was definitely an election geared. Let me write some.
Yeah, no Corona jokes.
It was election geared.
Yeah.
So I'll.
They work on their new hour. You're working on your new 5 minutes. I put out my 5 minute special. I can't do the same 5
Will you
minutes.
really punch it up for me though?
Yeah, that'll be
Help?
fun. That'll be a good time.
Okay.
Yeah.
You heard it. It's
Yeah,
happening.
heard it there. One thing we've gone long. I don't want to keep you here too long, but
I'm good, man.
dude, I was hearing about your idea for your new special.
Mm-hmm.
Not only the sort of not sticking it to the man, but going around and trying to own as much as. I want you to explain what you're doing, but also, isn't it true that you're taking the first CD that you made? Speaking of punching stuff up and reworking, like,
Yeah.
talk about that because
So
this is a trip.
I found my very first comedy CD. And it goes back to me always wanting to challenge myself artistically. Like what am I not that good at? Or what haven't I done? Or what haven't I tried? And so I listened to this CD. I'm like, I wonder how bad this is going to be. And I put it on. I'm like, the premises are good here, but it's a young comic. It's just a guy who doesn't really know what he's doing. I wonder how different these jokes would be if I just rewrote them. Mm-hmm. And just from who I am now. Now, I will tell you something funny that I found out was, okay. I don't, when I do jokes now, when I tell stories, I don't really consider myself to have punchlines in them. I don't think in terms of punchlines. There are some jokes. I can tell that the guy who was writing these stories or writing these thought about punchlines.
What's the kicker at the end?
So my punchline muscle was actually better. So it's funny. And the special is going to be a little comedy nerdish because I'm going to point out things like that's from the original.
Right.
I couldn't write that punchline right now, but it's so good I kept it. Like I'm going to nerd it out a little bit.
That's interesting though. Comedy it's on another boom. It seems like people. I think podcasts alone. Like, what's better to watch?
And y'all saved our lives, by the way. Thanks for all the
Dude,
entertainment.
we've listened to so much of you guys while we drive those long, long hours. We
and over
never
this
listen
year,
to music.
when we haven't done anything.
That's true. That's true.
Well, I mean, listen, that is one of the things. So writing this, I thought like, how can I keep? I don't want to give this away. How can I like? Because what I found a lot of success on YouTube without having to go right. So I thought I'm going to do this special. I'm not going to sell it to a network. I'm going to sell tickets online, so it streams live. So most time when you see a special, the person will shoot that set 2 or 3 times, and they'll
Right.
I'm doing it live, one take, which is a little nerve-wracking.
I can imagine.
The whole thing live?
Whole thing live, March 4th,
March
it
4th.
streams.
Yeah.
But you'll have it for a week just in case you can't watch it on March 4th.
And we can get tickets at your website?
Yeah, comedianjoshwolf.com. But I'm doing this also because it's like an experiment for me. Because if I can make a little bit of dough, we can change the model a little bit.
I'm going to help you stick it to the man.
Do you know what I mean? Like we can change the model.
Yeah.
Like it's not up to you to tell me how much money you think I deserve. Let's let the market bear that out.
You know a lot of famous people. You
Yeah.
have a lot of people trying to get to your
Yes.
famous friends through you.
Yes.
Yeah, I deal with that a lot.
Yeah. Well, I bet you more for you. I mean, because you're related. But I do have, there are 2 or 3 friends that people are always trying to get to. And I'm always
Yeah.
like, hey, first of all, they would hate you. So you don't want to meet. One of my favorite things is like when I'd always meet people who'd be like, you got to introduce me to Chelsea. She would love me. We're going to be best friends. And I'm just tell you right now, she would fucking
She would
hate
hate
you.
you.
So don't think, if you met her, she would be like,
You're going to meet her and you're going to try to do Chelsea to Chelsea.
Yeah,
and
she's gonna fucking hate you.
Yeah.
So I used to tell people all the time we'd be best friends. I'm like, no, actually, she'd hate your guts. I hate to pop your bubble, but she would shit in your mouth. She doesn't like you. Joey Diaz. Joey Diaz was he was my babysitter for my kids.
wow.
Really?
Oh yeah, Joe Diaz babysat my kids. So I was a single dad for a while. Excuse me. I met a woman. She had 2 kids. We had a kid together, and when I kicked her out, I kept all 3 kids. Right. But I was a comic, and I was living in L.A. in an apartment. I only was only making like $1,100 a month, maybe $1,200 a month. And I'd known Joe from Seattle because we started together.
Okay.
And so when he moved, he's one of my best friends. And when he moved down, he was my babysitter. So my kids, that Uncle Joey stuff, that's
Oh, that's from them?
my daughter. Okay. I came home once. So my deal with him was, man, just if I can get an early set, you come watch the kids and I'll come back from the set.
Flip.
And one of the places I met Chelsea is she used to watch my kids in the improv bar when I would go on stage. The other comics would watch my kids because I would drive, like at the Comedy Store, I was driving a Saturn at the time. Don't mean to brag.
Holy shit, we were just talking about Saturns before you got here. I was
We
like,
were guessing what you were going to
Yeah, did someone guess Saturn? Because you had been right.
There was a Saturn that pulled up and we were.
It was a Hyundai, but
Yeah.
I thought it doesn't matter. Anyway.
But
You were right.
my daughter, Joey, not big on underwear, and I came home one night and they were picking up toys. Joey's cleaning up, and he bent over and she pulled hair out of his ass crack, and she goes, "How many?" And he goes, "Oh, it felt like 4 that time." I was like, "That time?
This is a normal game?
What do you mean that time?" And he goes, "Oh, she loves this game." I go, "Yeah, but I fucking hate it, dude. Can't you play Sorry or Podchaser or something? Whose game is this?" Do you know what I mean?
Oh my God.
But my kids, I think, all have great senses of humor.
Yeah.
Like they all, but they grew up around comics. I mean, 100% they grew up around comics because that's who was watching them when I went on stage. My oldest son, he was 7 or 8 at the time. He used to introduce me at the Improv.
Oh, cute.
Yeah, it was fun. But they were involved, man. I didn't used to tell stories about my kids. This as a young comic, I just told jokes and whatever. What made me tell stories about my kids was when I became single. I couldn't afford therapy. And I just needed a place to get it all out. And when I started talking about my real life, I was getting laughs that I had never gotten before. Real, deep, heartfelt. And I was having people come up to me after shows, people come up to me after shows and say, hey, you're really funny, and they'd walk out. But then now people are coming up and identifying with these stories. And yeah, my daughter or my son, or yeah, that really, and I'm like, oh, the truth is touching people. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, and being myself
it
might be the key here.
It was such an eye-opening thing where I was like, well, these jokes that I'm telling are making people laugh, but nobody's leaving here remembering one of them because there's nothing memorable about them. But these stories are hitting home. It was such a crazy thing how just the fact that I was poor and couldn't go to therapy and just made me regurgitate shit on stage ended up maybe being the best thing that ever happened to my stand-up. The other thing about a band, like if I put out an album and I'm a band and I have 2 bangers, that's a successful album.
That's all you need.
If I put out a comedy album and have 2 tracks that are funny and 8 that eat, you're the worst comic
No, you're right.
ever.
You're right.
They're selling their CDs in the truck stops in bulk.
If you have 2 bangers, that is a great album.
One will get you the next one, but if
Right?
you have 2, like, holy shit, this person's almost legendary.
Yeah,
now.
this is a great, So, but comics, and the other thing I think for me, the biggest difference, honestly, is I have to try brand new jokes in front of people.
Yeah.
I can't rehearse them in a studio because that doesn't do me any good. The first time I say this joke out loud is in front of a room full of people.
That's what's interesting about starting too, because as a young band, you got a house, your
The
buddy's
first time I
kegger
play
party.
a song would not be in front of a room of people, by
Yeah.
the way.
But- yeah.
If I just came up with a song, I can barely get it out to JB and then I'm like, this is
we're
going to be
busting
stupid,
each
I'm
other's
sorry.
balls, like, oh, God, this again, but it's like, but yeah, I didn't think about that. You're literally going up. All right, I got an idea for this. Let me. I only got the first verse and the second
You're
chorus.
yachty-yattying through the
Yeah.
melody or something.
Because
No,
you
there's
guys
no
go
way
up
I would
without
do
even the
that.
whole song written. You got a verse and a chorus.
And
There's
coming
no,
up with it as you go.
there's no bridge left.
And
You're writing it.
Sometimes you're like walking on stage, you're like, oh, this 10 minutes is going to suck so bad. I mean, it's going to be quiet. But the only way to get better is to go through that.
Yeah.
So it's like, but the one thing I will say, man, that I'm so envious about music is that you all bring us back to a time or an emotion in a way that no other art does. A song can heal.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Oh
Like,
yeah, especially stuff you listen to in your early teens and 20s. You hear one of those songs 30 years later and like, whoa, it all just.
there are a couple albums that August and Everything After is a time for me.
Yeah.
It was just such a huge album at the time. And Nevermind, obviously. But those things bring me back to like
Moments.
Yeah. And I don't think comedy.
Well, we've
I don't
talked
think
about you
comedy
don't
does
really
that.
go back and listen to classic comedy albums. You know, it's almost there's stuff that lasts, and we've talked about how
Stories usually have longevity versus jokes about the times.
Yes. It's different too. I feel like our generation, we were so careful about what we put out was perfect.
dude, I remember the
And
first
it doesn't
live
have to be perfect anymore.
as a band when YouTube just came out and somebody would show up with a flip camera and film you, and you hear the sound quality, and you're like, oh, God, you can't put that out there. And now,
Doesn't matter.
gotten used to it.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah, it used to
Interesting.
drive me crazy.
Yeah,
like,
me
I
too.
can't have that shit out there.
Yeah.
What are you doing, man? There's nothing I can do. And
Yeah.
you just have to let go and then realize, oh, that's what everybody thinks. It's what everybody sounds like on a fucking cell phone. you know?
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
I wanted to ask you, when's
Yeah.
the first time that you heard of Willie Nelson?
Oh, okay. In high school, I went through a bunch of different incarnations of who I was, as I'm sure everybody did.
Yeah.
Of course.
I was in a breakdancing group. I was J-Rock.
Dude, I loved early hip hop.
J-Rock.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Come on. I was listening to KRS-One and
Fat
UTFO.
Boys. UTFO. Yep.
Yeah. And so, and then I went through a country phase. And so I saw Hank Jr., I think 3 times. I saw once him and Waylon in Hartford.
Oh, yeah. I loved Waylon was awesome.
But during that time, so high school, I started to listen to Willie Nelson. And I'll tell you what, here's the thing that I've always loved about him. I love anybody who's like, I'm sure the first person who heard your grandfather's voice was like, "You're never gonna make it.
Right.
They ran him out of town.
You're never gonna make it. You hear what you sound like? You're never gonna make it." And so people like that who go, "Oh yeah, I got something to say, and I'm an original, and I am gonna make it." Those people are super inspirational to me because everybody hears the word no.
Yeah.
And it just depends on if you want to accept it or not. And for somebody like your grandfather to not only hear no, but to be so different from not only everybody who was happening, but anybody who had come before him is a, somebody's got to be the pioneer. And so I've always been really appreciative of your grandfather for that reason.
I think those people are kind of touched, like almost aliens. There's certain people, like Les Paul drives me crazy. He invented the electric guitar, one of the world-class guitar players ever. Then he invented multi-tracking, being able to record an instrument and then go back and record on a different track. So he invented all of those things and it's not fair.
Yeah.
He wrote songs too. It's like, dude,
Give us one.
just one.
Give us one. Give
You're pretty
us
much
one.
responsible for rock and roll, the electric guitar and a 4-track machine. I'm like, fuck,
Give us
Les,
one. Give us one, dude. Give us
Yeah.
one.
Thanks for doing this with us.
Thanks
Okay,
for having me.
up and coming comedians. Who do you like?
You have one kid here in Nashville, and I'm going to tell you right now, I forgot his last name. His first name is Chance.
Chance.
He'll be at the show tonight.
Okay.
I'm going to tell you right now. When you see him tonight, just remember that you're going to say, I remember seeing him at Zany's.
Yeah.
He's young, but he has his voice already. He knows who he is already. And he's entertaining to watch, but he has his own style. I saw the first time, and I talked to the manager down there is a woman named Lucy, who's basically the best.
I heard a lot of good things about her. I don't know her
She's
personally.
Amazing. But I was like, this guy. And she said, he's the next one. Huh? I go, oh, my Lord. He's just knows who he is. So I would, him, maybe people around the country that,
Yeah.
well, now this is,
Are there any female comics you like?
well, there are a lot of female comics I like. One of my favorite female comics, she's not new, but Jen Kirkman.
Oh, I love Jen Kirkman. Yeah.
One of the reasons I like
she was
Jen.
on Chelsea with
yes. And I like Jen because, again, she's fearless. She'll take a notebook on stage and try 30 minutes of material that she knows is going to get silence. And just know that I have to do this to get better.
Work it. Mm-hmm.
And so Jen Kirkman is one of my favorites. Jessica Curson.
Oh, yeah. She's great.
Oh,
I listen to her podcast too. Yeah.
Jessica Curson, if you're not laughing at her show, there's something fucking wrong
with you. Mm-hmm.
She's uncomfortably funny.
She was on Legion of Skanks. You probably saw her.
Yes.
A,
Oh,
a couple of weeks ago.
Yep.
She's uncomfortably funny. Other female comics that I really, you talking about new, huh?
Well, what do you think of Olivia Grace? Have you heard of her?
I have not heard of Olivia.
Look her up. She's good. I love Nikki Glazer.
Nikki Glazer
But
is.
she's not up and coming.
She's not. But as far as her stand-up goes, the last 2 years has been like leaps and bounds.
Yes.
But again, it comes down to she finally doesn't give a fuck,
Right.
and she's just on stage, and she's funny.
Yeah. She's fucking
Legitimately
funny.
funny.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She's uncomfortably funny too. Yeah, I really like her. I like Jessimae Peluso. I like Annie
Oh,
Letterman.
yeah. Jessie Mae's great.
I like Annie Letterman because again, Annie is another person who doesn't really
Annie.
care.
She doesn't give a fuck. I mean,
Nope.
she just, she tortures Esther Pavitsky. Oh, my God.
Tortures.
And I like Esther
And she-
Pavitsky, but
She tortures Whitney too, which is so
yeah,
funny.
which is great, right?
And
I love Whitney.
Me too. There aren't too many comics who I would tell you I don't like that person. There just aren't.
Right.
I think we're probably all.
And Tim Dillon, what do you think of him?
Tim is one of the funniest young
He's
dudes.
huge right now,
Yeah,
too.
yeah.
he
5 or
slays
6
me.
Rogans, and you're.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
that's it. If I,
Are you going to do Rogan when you go to Austin?
I don't think so. Joe has never had me on a show. People ask me a lot why. I don't know the answer, but I don't question it because he's got the biggest show, arguably, in the world. He knows who his fans.
The stars just haven't lined up for you to be on there yet. It's going to happen.
He knows who his fans want to hear, and he and I know each other. So
That's another one of those names you're not going to ask, though.
No,
That's
no,
just
no,
to go,
I
hey,
know.
dude, why am I not going to be on the show?
Right.
So you play.
not well.
Yeah, well, guitar.
Yeah, but not well. I I don't know that I need to play well.
Well,
honestly,
unless you want to, you don't.
Right. Like, so I can play G and C and D and the
all
basic
you need.
chords.
You can write a
Blake Shelton song.
Yeah, exactly. You're a session player in Nashville. What are you talking about?
Yeah, I just wrote a Blake Shelton song just now. GCD. I nailed it. But yeah, I can play those, but I don't plug my guitar in. I put it in front of a mic. I want you to hear the jokes.
Yeah.
Do you know what I
You're
mean?
not trying to
for
get
funny.
your shredding over the top.
Yeah.
Check this out.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, none of that.
Yeah, I don't need to, because I used to plug it in, and after one show, some guy was like, "Hey man, you missed the C a couple times." I'm like, okay.
That sounds like a show in Nashville.
I was
Yeah,
like,
it
I'm not
does.
plugging that in. And again, I didn't, which one's the C? Do you know what I mean? Yeah, it's interesting because, like, you know what you said, that the guitar player didn't know what it was, and the drummer was like, "It's in whatever, just watch me." Watch you for what? He's playing drums, I'm playing guitar. Do you know what I mean? What am I watching for?
That's true, but there's like the
There's
turnarounds
cues.
coming, and he's like, and you feel something
Yeah.
about to change, and they're like, and then when it comes back around, you just nod and move around, like, here comes the chorus, here's the bridge, or here comes a big stop, that kind of
You
stuff.
can feel it.
It's so interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You have to be a good band that was played a bunch together, but there's been drummers I've played with where they would be doing something, and I could do this, and it means something, and you can hear it change behind just because we've known each other forever,
That's pretty
Nod
amazing.
to this, yeah.
Yeah,
It
and
sounds
usually,
amazing, but
we've had 45 drummers because we can't keep one. But usually they know if I'm doing this,
Yeah.
that it means to speed it up, because I'm like, come on, we're
Yeah.
not doing, there's little cues that you.
And so there's a lot of nonverbal cues on stage for you guys?
Totally. And
Yeah, it's so crazy.
Oh yeah, me and him will, have full conversations. without
Nonverbal
talking.
conversations.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, this really sucks. They're hating us right now. Oh, how are we going to get out of this one? We still got 40 minutes to play and we're out of songs.
Yeah.
Oh, shit.
We did email Bill Burr and ask him if he would be our drummer, but he didn't respond.
He didn't?
No.
Can you imagine
I
that?
don't think he wants to be a drummer though.
I had him on my podcast a couple weeks ago, and he's quite a drummer with his wig. That goddamn Comedy Jam, have you?
Dude, I've seen the Dean Del Rey AC/DC benefit. Have you checked that out?
Yeah.
Dean, God.
Dean can sing.
Woo. We're going to get him on here, actually.
Oh, he would love to. He
Well,
definitely.
there's
Oh, yeah,
nobody
he's-
better to talk to about rock and comedy
Yeah,
than
yeah.
that guy,
The goddamn Comedy Jam is something that Josh Adam Myers does, which is where Bill does a lot of his drumming.
Right.
Have you seen the goddamn Comedy Jam?
No.
Basically, comic gets on stage, tells 5 minutes of jokes, then tells a story about whatever song they're going to sing.
Oh, that's cool.
And so the last time I was on, I sang Wrecking Ball.
Oh, there you go.
And I'll tell you what, I love her.
I do too.
I love her just
yeah.
because she has a very rock and roll attitude.
And her voice
And
is
voice.
Yeah, her voice.
sultry and great. Her voice is
Raspy.
amazing and like
she's-
powerful.
Yeah.
And she made it out of child stardom. I mean, with
Yeah.
not being too fucked and doesn't give a fuck.
And she's introducing rock and roll to a younger generation, and I can't thank her enough.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Me too.
But
Love
I
it.
love that attitude.
It's like, who's
She
the young
did
band
Rebel
that's-
Girl at the thing I sent you yesterday. That she did before the Super Bowl for whatever
Yeah.
when she had Joan Jett come on, and she
Yes.
did Bad Reputation and Rebel Girl, which
Yes.
are two that
Bikini
we
Kill,
we
she's-
both play in our band. So I was like,
Joan Jett.
Yeah.
I met her here in Nashville. I had to stand in like a meet and greet line to meet her, and everything. But I was like, I'm Willie's granddaughter.
Yeah.
And she was like, if you ever need me to do anything, you just email me. And she gave me her email address. And she didn't email me back, but her manager emailed me back to ask for help with anything to do with animals. She's there to help.
That's
And
amazing.
she's a cool, and she's also like this big.
Yeah.
She's tiny.
Yeah.
Ballsy, though.
Super ballsy.
Yeah.
I remember I saw her at a spring break show when I was in college. And when you're in college and you're drunk on the beach, you're thinking, I could probably get Joan Jett to fuck me.
Not knowing.
Not knowing at all. Not knowing at all. Yeah. Not knowing at all. Not knowing at all. So I made my way up to the front of the stage. I was greased up. I was looking good, man. I was like, she's not
Well
vibing.
tanned, or
Yeah,
like,
yeah, what's going on? She's not vibing at all. Yeah, and then my buddy was like, I don't think she's into you. I'm like, no, she's not. He's like, no, in general, I don't think she's
You're kind.
Yeah.
You're at all. Yeah. That's hysterical.
Oh, I was like, I'm up front.
Come
Johnny,
on,
yeah,
hey, at
come
least
on.
give me
I'm
a look.
looking good tonight.
No.
Not it.
Sideways glance is all you get. Yeah. That's hilarious.
Good stuff.
It's going to be beneficial having people of your stature on it. Like, all right, this is legit. Because,
Yeah.
God, how many people request you or whomever
bunch.
to be on a podcast.
A bunch.
When we
Yeah.
started this, I was like, that's just what the world needs. Another fucking podcast, you know? But what else are we going to do?
Yeah.
You know?
No, but like you guys are different voices.
Yeah.
Well, people are used to seeing comics talk to comics about comedy.
Yeah.
At least a twist, you
Talk
know?
to some musicians about music sometime.
Well, I do love, the truth is, we all want to be musicians. And
We all want to be stand-ups.
yeah,
And it's true.
It's true. Like, the reason I started playing guitar is because my brother was like, you've always wanted to do this. I'm like, so badly. I've always wanted to sing on stage, but nobody would let me, and now they have to listen.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah.
I got my foot in the door. Fuck you guys. You want jokes? You get a song.
Yeah.
Yep.
Exactly right. But I'm super excited for you to come down tonight, and I would love for you guys. The next show is March 28th. If you want to write your own song, if you want to write a song together, if you want to parody a song, if you want to just go down and riff, but I would love to have you guys come and
Yeah,
join me
man.
and fill up.
Duet song.
I like it.
Parodies are fun just because
People can know the melody. Let's do
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
You know what I
would
mean?
want to
Yeah.
know the melody too.
they
I get
do.
it.
They like to know it.
Should I parody one of mine? I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
You
Never
can.
heard that one. One you know.
We had this
That's
had this joke
hilarious.
where there's all kinds of residency shows here, and you have to go and sing a song and while
Yeah.
the band plays. And we had this joke where we get up there and go, all right, boys, play one of mine.
Yeah,
And a
tribute
one,
night.
and a
Like,
two."
let's play one of mine, boys. It's Zeppelin night or something, you know? And a one, and a two, and
And just start singing your song, and they have to go in.
You know, I saw Prince at a tiny little club in Vegas. He was doing a residency at the Rio, which was his club. I think it was the Rio. And when we walked in, my wife and I mean, for me, Prince is
dude.
okay.
Yeah,
so,
you
You
can't.
don't have
no,
to.
no, no.
Don't even have to.
across the board.
Yeah.
Whether it's his vocals or his guitar playing.
He's another alien that pisses you off.
The guitar playing for me, I could have just, if you had said, hey, Prince is going to just play guitar, no, nothing else, I'd have been like, yeah, I'll go watch that.
Yeah, my beef with him is he didn't do enough of it. It's like, quit playing keyboards and pull that fucking thing out and shred, my God.
Yo, it's one of the few guys where I'm like, that guitar feels like it's part of his body.
He's
Do you know
not
what I mean?
looking.
Like, no.
He's doing it in the rain in the Super Bowl with his eyes shut. Rain is pouring down on him, and he's still shredding. It's, yeah.
We saw him at the Rio, and so I walked into the bartender. I'm like, hey, so what does he play? He goes, he's never played the same show twice. And I was like, what? And he said, yeah. He said, last night, all he did was take requests from the crowd. And I go, how many songs didn't he know? He was like, he knew all of them. And I said, what? And he said, and not only that, if there was somebody in the band who didn't know how to play it, he picked up their instrument and played it on their instrument.
Oh my God.
And I was like, that's kind of fucked up. And he was like, it was so intimidating. Like, he was like, that was the night where you were like, oh, this guy is the best. Like,
Yeah.
The night I go, well, what haven't you heard him play? He said he hasn't played one song off of Purple Rain. And the night we saw him,
Ding, ding, ding.
top to bottom, besides Darlin' Nicking, because he wasn't playing that, he had
Jehovah's Witness or something?
yeah. So he wasn't playing Darlin' Nicking, but he played top
Wow.
to bottom Purple Rain. And my wife
People
and
would
I
have paid so much money to see that
Mm-hmm.
show.
I'd always wanted to hear him play guitar on Purple Rain live. You know, I remember when people were like, well, he shouldn't be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. He's not rock and roll. I'm like, who's more rock and roll than that motherfucker?
Stop with that nonsense.
Who is more rock and...
Yeah.
And did you know that he hid behind the speakers at his first show because he was so scared?
Mitch Hedberg. That's a Mitch Hedberg move.
I saw Mitch.
Hedberg
saying-
used to face the wall, or the reason he wore sunglasses and had his hair over his face is that he just was nervous.
That
Crazy.
dude was funny.
He would have owned Twitter. They would have changed. They would have just changed it. They wouldn't have called Twitter. They'd have called it Hedberg. 140.
He didn't need
This
140
brings-
characters.
No.
Yeah, give me 25. I'll
Yeah.
be fine.
I know we're trying to end, but that brings me. I met a guy, and his name was Mitch Hedgecliffe, and he was actually a cover comic for Mitch Hedberg. What
Never-
are your thoughts of cover comics?
I've never heard of it, and I think that dude should stop immediately.
I heard that. I was like, he's like a cover band?
No.
He
Dresses
just like
up like
kind of
him?
looked like him.
Yeah, that's
so
bad.
he was like, "I'll do that."
It's a terrible idea.
It's like an Elvis impersonator, I guess.
yeah.
So if I dressed up as you and started doing your candor and your jokes,
I
and-
would pay good money to see it.
On second thought, it sounds like a great idea. Hell, I'd pay for that.
Yeah, I mean, I would pay for that. Yeah, but don't you? Nobody
it's not a
will
thing.
ever be Mitch Hedberg.
yeah.
All right, you should get the fortune told.
Yeah, let's
All
go.
right, let's go for it.
Do that. Do you have $1, Jabe?
I do. Sucking me dry.
Oh, it's a 3. All right, and then I'm gonna
And you can
speed
bounce.
drive back to. I'm supposed to 4 o'clock podcast with Chelsea.
Don't say it too quietly. Say it louder. That was funny.
Yeah. Hey, why does that look like Down syndrome, Willie Nelson?
Also, my grandma has brown eyes. And that man
You think, by the way, the eyes aren't the only problem.
He's wearing the shirt, so that's how you know.
And by the way, is he wearing shoulder pads? This dude is jacked.
Willie Nelson here to share with you some wisdom. My doctor tells me I should start slowing down, but there are more old drunks than there are old doctors. So let's all have another round. Come on, it's your lucky day. Stick around and I'll tell you some more.
I think that's really his voice, too. It really sounded...
It sounded just like my grandma.
Yep.
Here's your fortune.
Well, this is...
It'll take you 3 hours to read it, so you can just wait till you're shitting. All minor. So
Yep.
apparently it's just like they had an all minor and then they just like pop all the braids.
I think it's hilarious because that doesn't look anything... By the way, the braids, different color than the rest of the hair. Do you know what I mean? Like, you didn't even want to match up. How lazy. You didn't even want to put the real color and you're just gonna throw some yarn in there? Like it's like a third grader.
Raggedy
like,
Ann.
I know, that's the laziest.
Wow, I think it was another fantastic episode.
I do too. It was a lot of fun. I can't believe we have all these amazing comedians that are agreeing to talk to us.
Yes, special thanks to Josh Wolf for coming down and
Thanks,
hanging
Joff.
hanging out in person at the museum. We had a blast. We actually went down and saw him later that night.
Yeah, and we're going to be going to his show March 28th at Zany's in Nashville, and I think you and I are going to do some parody songs.
I think so. We talked a little bit. You remember that from the podcast, so
Yeah.
we're going to give it a shot. Anyway, next week we have...
Dean Del Rey, so come back and join us.
See you next week. Enjoy your groceries.
Free Britney. I know your mama's name.